Thank you. I thought coming to Carnegie Mellon, you may put me up against a Bill Gates or a rocket scientist, but the originals? I mean, come on. I went out for choir in 8th grade, and the piano instructor told me that I needed to sing the scale. And I said, what's that? And she said, do, re, okay, I got it. And I said, do, and she said, that'll be enough, you didn't make it. So I'm gonna give the rest of my speech solo. Solo, nobody can hear me, but just assume I'm up here doing something. It's been a phenomenal day here, and what an inspiring group of speakers and actually participants. And what I want to talk a little bit about is that I need your help. Kids need your help. We got a major problem facing us here in the United States, and we can't solve it alone. But I'm going to come back to that. I want to tell you why I do what I do first. I do what I do because when I was 2 years old, my mother had given birth to the 8th of us Hammond kids. And my father, who was a cross-country truck driver, went to unload one of his semis and never came back. And my mom, for as hard as she tried, raising all 8 of us for 2 years, had several nervous breakdowns, and we became wards of the court. And she made the hardest decision for her, but what was the best decision for us? And I got shipped 3,500 miles away to a group home. And it was in this group home between the ages of 4 and 18 that I was a product of charity. I was a product of philanthropy. Other people looked upon me and raised me right. I didn't know it now, then as much as I know it now, but certainly when I think back going through high school and participating against a sports team 1 year and them not being around the next year because of consolidation or losing money. I was raised in a group home, and every year, although I wasn't in the band got new uniforms. We had some of the best athletic equipment that money could buy for these almost 13,000 now kids like me that was raised by this one group home. And I say that because when I was 23 years old, I dropped out of college, and I was living on a friend's couch in Washington, D.C., and I read an article in the Washington Post about 2 young kids named Aisha and Clendon. And a reporter several weeks earlier had read a small blurb in the Washington Post and almost went without notice, but she noticed it. And it was about 2 young kids who in 1995 who'd crawled into an abandoned car because that was their playground, almost on a daily routine. On this day, they suffocated and died. And she went down to the community and she literally went block by block by block to find out if they hadn't crawled into that car, where would they have played? And the first park that she could find was within 3 miles of Stoddard Terrace. And in the interim, the mayor started to point fingers at the city council. The city council started to point fingers at the park and rec department. The park and rec department, and apathy had set in. Nobody was going to do anything about this. I didn't start out to build an organization. I started out simply because I was so compelled by a justice nerve that said a community at the same age that my father left my family and I went to a group home that Aisha and Clendon were. Was anybody going to come to their aid? So 17 years later, 2,353 playgrounds. We've raised over $247 million. We've leveraged about 1 million volunteers to impact almost 6 million kids to provide a great place to play. And what I want to talk about is we think play is a luxury. But the reality, it's through play that kids actually learn. It's through play that we get growing minds going. It's through play that in many instances, you actually work with somebody who does not look like you or talk like you. So there's an amazing amount of socialization that can happen. But the sad reality is recess is eliminated in 52% of school districts across the country. Only 1 in 5 kids live within access to a park, which is a half a mile. Yet you're 5 times more likely to be of healthy body weight if you do. In Chicago, they built 500 playgrounds between the years of 1998 and 2003. But if you map those, they didn't go into low-income communities where possibly those kids who both need them most could also benefit from them most. We have an injustice that is happening to some of our kids in the country. The reality is almost 16 million kids in the United States live in extreme poverty. What trajectory are we sending their growing minds off on? And I think about it as a leader of an organization that frankly says, as proud as I am of what we've done, we haven't done enough to the size of the problem. And that although we believe change is possible, our actions do not have the symmetry to tackle the solution on the size it needs to. So we need to reimagine as much as we've been able to do in 17 years to do more of it quicker. Because if we've served 6 million kids, yet there's 16 million out there, is it going to take 42 more years for us to reach them? If you're a business, you think 30% market share is a pretty good thing. But in social change, we should be in it to end things, not simply make them less worse. Not simply to make them less bad. All over the country, kids like Aisha and Clendon are playing anywhere they can. And that's okay. But when we think about kids are getting 8 hours of screen time a day, television, some sort of computer, 8 hours a day, what are we doing to their body? Roaming, over the years, people used to be able to roam out of sight, out of mind, but as long as you came back for dinner and the police weren't showing up at your house, it was probably a pretty good thing and you'd get the same freedom the next day. Now, kids roam less than 30 feet from their parents. They're tethered. We have an epidemic on our hands, both in terms of childhood obesity, where 1 in 3 kids are overweight. It's a national imperative that we change this for all kids, not just some kids. When we look at who's graduating high school and then who's going on to college and who's not, it's a national imperative that we change this. Because the skills that you're all getting here around imagination, creativity, problem solving, communication are only going to become more important in life, in business, in career, in family, in the future than it is even right now. And therefore, it's incumbent upon us to get those first 2,000 days of a child's mind when the brain synapses are really firing out and give them the best opportunity and a chance to succeed. The brain research is finally catching up with what we've known for a long time, that all kids, no matter where you were born or what income you're born into, all brains are the same. But they go on 2 paths. The ones that get opportunity, those synapses fire off, they connect, they channel. The ones that don't get opportunity, they fire off and atrophy sets in, and they go away, never to be given again. Play seems like, as easy as it is, an absolute necessity for lifelong success. Play is the best natural resource in a creative economy. And we're living in a creative economy now that's only going to get more. So we need to do something about it. And some of the ideas that we have about it is we can't have playful kids if we don't have playful adults. And it's been said that this generation of parents are parenting their kids differently than any other generation because the television became the babysitter. And they were sat in front of a TV when society started to change, so their acceptance of screens is greater than any other time in history. Kids in low-income areas are outside less than 45 minutes a day. Yet we know vitamin D and what it does for our body. Yet we've got to pump them with vitamin D now. We think about in mental health situations, one of the first things that they do when they're trying to diagnose what may be your challenge is play therapy. Yet we've robbed play out of our kids' lives, and we deal with it as an intervention instead of a prevention. We as adults, as older siblings, as community members, have to practice what we preach. We have to be more playful. We have to be more outside. And it's not about making kids play, it's about letting them play. I have a friend who every day can determine how his child did at school, a rambunctious 9-year-old, by how his recess period was. And if it was a good recess period, he generally had a pretty good day in school. If it was a bad recess period, there were other problems that happened. So we got to not just make kids play, but actually let them play. The second thing is we have to deal with this injustice. And KaBOOM thinks that there are about 900,000 playgrounds in the United States. When you just look at the average purchasing price, how the lifespan of a playground, how many have been shipped, about 900,000. We have a map of 89,000. We have a map of 89,000, more than Google has actually, and they keep calling us to get it. But it's not going to help us until we're able to map every single one of those play spaces and overlay that against a map around race and income and high school graduations and childhood obesity rates, because there is a correlation. And when there is a correlation and we see it, believe it or not, we've seen city leaders across the country take action. I just came from Grand Rapids, Michigan last night, where they had done this. They had mapped their play spaces, overlaid it against some of these social screens, and were surprised at what they saw. And if they confront the brutal reality and envision a better future where all kids should be able to achieve their full potential and get the childhood that they deserve by choice, not chance, we're going to do something about it. Which comes back to, we think we can spark a movement here. And we think that there's somebody possibly in this audience that could actually help us figure this out. How can college students be used as a different lever? Either in the data collection yourself, building an app, building a data miner. I don't know what the opportunities are, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas. Because if we can close the gap on the data and stop fighting about the perceived versus the reality, we can get on to solutions. And I'm excited about getting on to solutions because I think the next things that's possible is to not just build more playgrounds, but actually how do we build better playgrounds that will get kids to play longer, play harder, and want to come back and play more often. Again, to reach the ultimate goal that all kids achieve their fullest potential and get the childhood they deserve by choice, not chance. So I hope it has sparked somebody's wildest imagination, and through play, and the notion that play is disappearing, that you can come with the purposeful idea and experimentation for us to take to implementation. Thank you very much.